Okay, so greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope all of you are doing well. Today, I have a really special guest, an awesome person, a dear, dear friend of mine, and a dear friend of all of us. He is none other than Luke, and Luke's great channel, Razor Wire Reviews on YouTube, is one of my absolute favorites. Luke is a hero of mine, and he is a dear friend, a great supporter, a great human being, and so knowledgeable about cinema and so enthusiastic. So I look forward to talking with Luke in the next hour or so about cinema and what it is he has to say about it. But without further ado, please let me welcome Luke. So Luke, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been listening to some of the previous conversations, so it's kind of it'll be fun to do this, and it's good for me to be on your channel for a change. You've done me the great honor of being on my channel many, many times over the past couple of years, so I think it's about time I appeared on your channel.
No, I really have to say thank you very much for reminding me about that. And if you'll just let me indulge myself for a moment, let me just say from the outset that I really appreciate your inviting me on your channel on a number of occasions over the past couple years, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm always so grateful for you, and that's just a wonderful example of how you are so welcoming to many people, not just me, but to so many people. And that's an example of your kindness and also the way you foster a great sense of community and your willingness to listen and to hear other people's thoughts about cinema and life. So I really want to thank you for that. It's really meant a lot to me, and hopefully I'll try to address that a little bit more as we go along today. But just from the outset, let me say thank you so much for that, my friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's for you for giving the time as well. I mean, we did that the Naoko Ogigami series, and that's you went out, you bought loads of films, and you watched them all, you reviewed them all for the purpose of my channel, and so that was a great chunk of your time. So I appreciate that.
Oh, not at all, my friend. The pleasure is all mine. But this is such an honor for me, and we've spoken, you both online and offline, of course, about cinema and about a lot of things. And I know that there are so many your channel and your talks and your podcast episodes and the like. And so I know that you have maybe so many people already know you and what it is you're about in your cinema journey, because you've been so generous in sharing with us, all of us, stories about your growing up and the films you've been seeing and the films that really were memorable to you. But if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you here about that and to see what it is you have to say. In other words, I would just like to hear your thoughts or your. I'd like to ask you really about your cinema life and your cinema journey. It is an ongoing thing, but it started, of course, when you were growing up and when you were younger and a child. And so I'd like to ask you from the outset, what were some of those films that you saw growing up that you would consider to be milestone films for you? That is, films that really left a mark on you, had a great impression upon you growing up, such that you ended up becoming the great cinema fan that you are today. So what were some of those early memories of cinema for you?
Um, well, the kind of the ground zero for me with films is Aliens. Like literally, the very first film I ever saw, believe it or not, which is the classic story for me. When I was a baby, my mum was watching this film, Aliens, at home on the TV, and apparently I just sat and just watched with wide eyes for 2 hours straight and didn't cry or anything. I was just kind of transfixed by the TV. Obviously, was not cognizant of what was going on or anything. I have no memory of this. But when I was a young kid, maybe 5, 6, 7, she'd tell me the story of how that was the first film you ever watched, really. mean, it wasn't. It wasn't. I wasn't really aware that I was watching a film or anything. But so that was kind of. So then, when I was a kid, 6, 7 years old, I was like, "Wow, I want to see this film." And she's like, "Well, maybe not just yet, you know." And that was kind of a big part of my childhood, was kind of nudging my mum to get me to watch these films. So it was Alien, Aliens, Terminator, and Terminator 2 that were like on the shelf with the glaring 15 and 18 rated logos on the side of the VHS tapes. It's like, oh god, do I really have to wait like another, 8 years to watch these films? So Aliens was huge, and then I finally watched it, and I was trying to remember at some point, when did I really watch Aliens for the first time? And I figured I'd be maybe 10, 11, something like that, which is a little bit too young to be watching those films. But I think my mum understood that I could handle it, and I did. I watched them, and I loved those films, the first two Alien films, not so much the third one. And but then I remembered that when Alien Resurrection was coming out, was that 97? I think that was 1997 when Resurrection was coming out. I was so excited for that film. Like, I remember the trailer showing on TV, and I was just like, the adrenaline. I was so excited for that film, and I can't have been excited for that film without having seen the other ones, which means I couldn't have been more than 9 when I first watched Aliens, which is ridiculous, really. But we hear similar stories of people who watch those films maybe a little bit too young. But yeah, so Aliens for me was huge, and it's something I link very closely to my mum. At that time when I was a kid, she had similar hair to Ripley, and so and she's kind of a similar personality a little bit. She's very strong-willed, my mum, and she loves those films, and I love those films, and so we share that love of the series together. I actually managed to drag her to the cinema to see Alien Covenant a few years ago. That was a rarity. She rarely will go to the cinema because she gets really bothered by other people in terms of like loudness or chewing or anything like that. And actually, we went to it was just me and her. The whole cinema was completely empty for Alien Covenant. But so that series and that movie, Aliens, remains a favorite to this day. The Star Wars movies, I don't want to go too much into Star Wars because I talk about it so much. And honestly, since The Rise of Skywalker, I'm enjoying not talking about Star Wars for a bit. It's nice to have this down period. It's yeah. So Star Wars, that an interesting story was that my stepdad introduced me to those films, and he really wanted me to watch it, and we started watching it, and I was so bored. So I just wasn't interested at all. The droids in the desert, oh my god, just let me just go upstairs and play on my Master System, please, like just save me. So I just quit. And I guess he just loved Star Wars so much that he wasn't giving up on me just yet. So he nudged me to watch it again, and it was just like a light switch went off, and it was like, holy, like I just was in love with it. And then we watched the other two and so on, and I just watched those films over and over again, and that kind of formed my love for Star Wars. And my stepdad had a lot of different films. He had the James Bond movies. He didn't have all of them, but I watched a lot of them. Like the Timothy Dalton films he didn't have, so I didn't see those until I was like in my 20s, I think. A lot of the Roger Moore ones, Sean Connery, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that was one of his favorites. I loved that one as well. He had Star Trek movies. I didn't get into those. I didn't get into the Indiana Jones movies, but he had a lot of films. And so those were the early ones. And then probably the other big one for me was Batman, Tim Burton's Batman. Loved that film. I'm not sure how I first saw it, but I begged for it for Christmas on video once, and I got it. And Batman Returns. I was just in heaven, and I just would watch those films over and over and over again. So those were the really early films for me. Star Wars movies, the Alien franchise, to a lesser extent, the Terminator films, and then the Batman franchise. So,
Because it brings up a number of things. I guess the first thing I'd like to ask is, it sounds like you said, for instance, with Aliens, this was something that you associate also with your mother. And you also brought up the great story about seeing Alien Covenant with her in the theater. And then you also mentioned Star Wars with your father, and how it took. You mentioned very interestingly how he didn't give up on you, right? Especially after your first encounter with the film, but then when you saw it again, something clicked, as you said. So this is really interesting to me, because do you see therefore your cinematic beginnings, as it were, do you consider that to be greatly influenced by the cinematic, let's say, the cinematic tastes that your family had, in particular your mother and your father? I mean, do you see that as something that has influenced you into where you are as a cinema fan today?
Yes and no. I think where I am right now is mainly been through my own searching and digging for something different. So a lot of the films I'm into now certainly are far removed from, even I'll say it. My mum once, because I started watching all these classic films and silent films and stuff, and I think my mum kind of looked down on me a little bit. She thought I was being a bit pretentious in watching a lot of these films. And I'm just like, oh, you just don't get it, mum. But certainly like the foundation, absolutely, with family. So my dad, he loved like martial arts movies, Bruce Lee films. Way of the Dragon was a big one that I watched with him. But yeah, so my stepdad, it was like Star Wars, like he introduced me to that. My mom, I'd say the Alien movies. My dad, more like Bruce Lee stuff and Batman. Actually, my dad's a big Batman fan. My nan loves the Back to the Future movies, so that was like our kind of. So it's like each family member, there's like a certain franchise almost. And then there was my my dad's dad, who passed away many years ago. He loved the Rocky movies, and so for us, that was like the big bonding thing. And I always link those movies to him, and even I almost kind of like make an amalgam of my Gramp and Mickey in those movies. They don't look similar, but they don't act similar. But there's something about my Gramp that seemed to be like him in some way, shape, or form. And the more far removed I get from his death, I think it just becomes stronger. And it's almost like my link to him. So yeah, those films, the Rocky films, I love those films so much. I haven't seen them in a long time. But one of my most special memories of being just a film fan in general was going to the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Me and my fiance went to the East Coast of America a few years ago, and I was like, "We got to go to Philadelphia. We can't miss that." So I went there and did the run up the steps, did the pose and everything. But I wasn't really thinking about the movie. I was thinking about my grandpa, and I thought, man, he would have thought this was really cool. So that was a really special like movie moment in my life, I think.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
that's
and
great.
I try not to regret things too much, but I think one of the biggest regrets of my life is movie related. It was about 6 months before he died. I went over to the house and said, "Can I borrow the Rocky movies on video?" And he said, "Well, why don't you just come over and we'll watch them all together?" And I said, "No, I'll just borrow the tapes." And man, if I could just get that experience back, I mean, God, just to watch those films then one more time, it would be. But yeah, so they definitely feel strongly linked to family, especially growing up, and it's weirdly clumped into different franchises for each family member almost, which is kind of fun. But I like that when you love movies, you watch them, you enjoy them for what they are, but there's the added emotional resonance of remembering the times you watched them with family and stuff.
And you also mentioned this idea about how, uh, at the same time, you said you, of course, mentioned this foundation. I like that word that you use, foundation. But of course, at the same time, you are uh, off on your own, so to speak, in terms of your own not self discovery, but your own discovery of cinema and also the films that you watch and you are interested in. And of course, we all know that you have a wide ranging taste in the types of films that you watch. And so, do you now find are there occasions where you it is now on you, and do you find that you are introducing new films for people in your family or your close circle to watch? I mean, before you said about the foundation, how you were influenced by the people around you, the different franchises, so to speak. And so that was coming from them. But now, do you find that there are opportunities where the reverse is true, where you are introducing new films to them or to other people in your close circle?
Um, with my family, not so much, really. It's very difficult to get my mum to watch a film. I don't know, especially, well, actually, I don't know. I will say one thing about my mum. A really great thing we did once, many years ago, was I showed her Seven Samurai. And I was blown away that I managed to get her to watch this. What we did was she loves The Magnificent Seven, and I'd never seen it before. And so we did this kind of swap. So it's like, okay, you show me Magnificent Seven, I'll show you Seven Samurai. And it was a wonderful experience. Like, we're watching Seven Samurai, we're like, oh, that's the James Coburn character, we're seeing the similarities and stuff. And so that was really nice, actually. But yeah, no, it's tricky. My dad likes very mainstream, just action stuff. And so the kind of things I watch, he wouldn't be as interested in. My brother and sister, who are quite younger than me, I try to introduce them to stuff when I can. I think Studio Ghibli's been a big one. I was always like pushing those on my brother, so I've got him into those. My sister, I'm starting to show her some films like Kiki's Delivery Service and stuff. I guess the main person is Connie. Really, like that's the arm I'm always pulling into a certain direction. Of like, let's watch this movie. Recently, we watched The Philadelphia Story, which is a film she would never watch unless I was like dragging her to. So things like that, and that kind of links to my YouTube trajectory, I guess, where it's like we'll watch this for the video. We'll make a review about it for the 1001 Movie series. So usually if there's like a reason to do it, then I can get her to watch something, or if we're doing a movie marathon, something like that. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd love to introduce my family and people I know to these films, but it's a little bit more tricky than that, I guess. I think my tastes are they've evolved into a different sphere than my family, I think, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's just the things I'm more interested in are not as interesting to them, I think. But we still share the same love of, those certain franchises. And the more that I get into classic film and things like that, my love for more mainstream stuff hasn't diminished at all. So it's just there's just more to choose from depending on your mood.
Of course, that's very well said, my friend. Very well said indeed. And I think also you're absolutely right. It's not like uh, we all love all the same films exactly at the same time. We all diverge and we go in our own separate ways, but still, we can still find films where we can come together and have that communal experience. You're absolutely right. But so this is really interesting, though. So now let me ask you. So you as you said, you had that foundation, and growing up, or when you were young, and these sort of formative years, as it were, and these were exciting years, as you say, you remember seeing Aliens and just being really into it, and how this was very influential. But then let me ask you, what were, as you were growing up, what were some of those films that you saw or that you discovered along the way that you would describe as being very influential, maybe landmark moments, maybe those films that you discovered uh, on your own, and that really led you closer to the type of cinema fan that you are today? So what were some of those things, maybe beyond the foundation, that really led you on the path that you are on right now?
Um, it's a very simple answer, and it's Seven Samurai. I think I watched that 9 years ago, 2011. So I wanted to do this thing on my channel called it the Epic Film Challenge, where I would watch one film every day for a year, just to push myself to watch more movies, and then just to make a short video just saying what I thought of it. It wasn't really reviews so much. And Connie joined me for a lot of those videos. And up to a point, it's like, okay, we're doing all these like mainstream stuff. It's like, well, what's something different I can pick, And I'd always been aware of this film, Seven Samurai. It just sounded cool, I think my dad was into old samurai movies as well. So I got a copy of it and I watched it very late, and it just was captivating. And I just thought, wow, this is just something completely different than I've ever seen before. I think I'd seen a few Japanese films here and there, but this was just something on a whole other level. And I don't know about you, but like sometimes when I watch a film and I'm tired, I'll nod off a little bit and I'll think, oh, it's okay. I didn't miss much. That happened there, but I thought, no, I can't miss anything. So my viewing of Seven Samurai took me about 4.5 hours because I kept rewinding because I'm not missing anything here. I was up to about 6 in the morning, had work the next day, didn't care, and I just thought this has changed my life now as a movie watcher. And from there, it went on to more Kurosawa. And it wasn't instant, but slowly I started drip feeding myself different kinds of films, world cinema, and it just expanded from there. And then silent films were huge for me, and the whole sparking of that, which is a long story for me, but very simply, it started with like A Trip to the Moon, and being like, okay, this is actually a lot more watchable and enjoyable than I thought it would be. And then I think it was Buster Keaton, watching some of his films and being blown away by how much those films hold up. Like they're so funny. They just haven't really aged as far as like a comedic, experience. And then it was Metropolis, and just being staggered by how incredible this film was visually. And then Sunrise was like the final nail in the coffin, where I'm just like, this is something I have to like dedicate a lot of time to. So Sunrise is just one of the best films I've ever seen. And from there it just exploded then. And that's, I never looked back.
And when you say from there it just exploded and you never looked back, so
Mm.
what was that the beginning of your kind of physical media collecting, or was that physical media collecting always there, and along the way you started to watch films like Seven Samurai and Buster Keaton films and Sunrise. So what came first, was, or did it all come at the same time in terms of your Blu-ray and DVD collecting?
Collecting has always been there from the absolute beginning. But like I said, when I never looked, that point where I just thought, I'm not looking back, that is where it just it expanded exponentially in terms of collecting. But no, when I was a kid, it was always videos, videos. I loved, VHS tapes, and the collection kept building, get them for Christmas. And so that was like a big thing for me, was I have a video somewhere of myself when I was a kid filming some clip, and it's almost like a YouTube video. I'm in front of my bookcase with all my VHS tapes behind me when I was like 11 years old or something. And then DVD came along, and that was a slow process because I was mostly buying those with my own money, which I didn't have a lot of. And then when I became older, I was buying more DVDs, and then Blu-ray came along. For me, when it came to like DVDs, it was the special features that were a big sell for me. Like I just loved commentaries, behind the scenes stuff. That's when I really started getting into the behind the scenes of movies and getting fascinated by the making of films, like the Lord of the Rings sets, which is still unmatched for me as far as like in-depth looks at productions of films. And the Alien quadrilogy set, oh my God, that was one of the most exciting weeks of my life, I think. Just reading online all of this information, like, oh my God, there's two versions of every film, audio commentaries, like hours of documentaries. And again, I've told this story before, but my nan was going to buy me the Alien quadrilogy set for Christmas. But my mum worked at a shop where they sold DVDs. So my mum bought the DVD for my nan to get for me for Christmas. So I knew that my mum had this copy in the house. And I was like, Mum, can I just watch a little bit of it before Christmas? Can I just watch some of the extras, please? And she's like, oh, I was like, just give me like a day with the set. And she gave me a day with the set before Christmas, and I watched like 10 hours straight of these documentaries, and there was still like so much more to watch. But so that was, yeah, I loved all that stuff. But collecting, yeah, it's got out of hand recently in the past few years, I have to say. When I moved to Norway, it was tricky because I didn't bring my collection with me. I brought them in disc wallets, but not the physical copies. And then living in Norway for 5 years, it becomes all too easy to order stuff from Amazon because they would take off the VAT, the tax. So I could get things from the UK in Norway a lot cheaper. So I don't know how it worked out with the tax or anything, but from Norway you don't pay the tax. And so I was ordering so much stuff, and then now I had a big collection in Norway, and then we had to move back to the UK. And so traveling with a big collection is not the easiest of things, but yeah. But collecting has always been huge for me, and it's just gotten way more out of hand in recent years.
Well, because there's so much to choose from, and there's so
Oh yeah,
many
yeah,
things that are
yeah,
coming out. It's really amazing. I too was a huge fan of those Lord of the Rings sets, the extended
yeah.
editions. I mean, those were huge, absolutely huge. And then the Alien set, I have that. I think that is one of the best physical
Definitely.
media releases out there. I mean, there's so many, but that the extras, they just went on and on and on. It was great. They're almost endless. I
Yeah,
particularly love I love when you have extra features and supplements about films that maybe at the time were sort of misunderstood or maybe weren't as popular at the time, and then they tend to grow, or they potentially can grow in stature. And I think that Alien 3, I think watching those features really helped to put a better perspective for me and that film, because I think you mentioned it earlier. It's a pretty, how should I put it? There are some things about it that I think are make it a somewhat of a challenging work. Let me put it that way. But I think those features on that set, in particular for me on Alien 3, were really good. There's one moment I always laugh out loud when, I don't want to say too much about it, but in terms of details, but Paul McGann, right? He's in the film, right? And he's
Mhm.
talking, he's so excited about what it was he was supposed to do and what the plan was. And then suddenly his excitement turns almost like somber and like despondent. He's like, oh, something happened and it was a mistake. And it just faded to black, and that was it. I was just laughing out loud. This is amazing. What an amazing documentary about a very interesting production of a very interesting film, Alien 3. But
Yeah, the Blu-ray version of the set actually expanded that documentary as well, which was great. I think when the DVD set came out, they cut some stuff out of that documentary, and so when the Blu-ray came out, they restored it in its entirety. And yeah, it's just such a fascinating look at a film that did not go well at all. And even the special edition cut of the film, which had no involvement from David Fincher, it's really interesting. And again, with the DVD, it was a little bit rough around the edges. There was like on-set audio. They had to put subtitles on because you couldn't quite hear it. And then for the Blu-ray, they actually brought the whole cast back, recorded those lines again. And so you have that alternate version of the film, which I think is, I don't know if it's better, but there's certainly a lot that can be said for that alternate version of the film, which I think makes it a little bit stronger for me. But yeah, I've had a very interesting relationship with that film. One interesting bit of trivia, my mum recorded that from the TV once, and for some reason it only recorded the film in black and white for the first hour. So I spent years thinking that was an artistic choice. I thought that Alien 3 was in black and white for the first hour, like, and I thought, oh, they're trying to be bleak or something in the beginning. Until I realized it was just the TV signal didn't pick up color for the first hour of the recording.
and then it
It's
turned into color.
yeah, the last section was in color.
Interesting.
It's
But
yeah,
that's interesting.
I
Oh, I'm sorry. It has a kind of maybe monochrome type of palette to it. That's for sure.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it for being so completely different. Like, I mean, talk about swinging for the fences. And another thing about that documentary on the Blu-ray is they talk about the versions that didn't happen, like the wooden planets and everything. And they get the screenwriter to come in and talk about his version of the film. And this is just really interesting ideas. So that's one of the things that can be great about physical media, is just really presenting a new perspective on the making of the film and what could have been, what was, and all sorts of things.
That's such a great way of putting it, my friend, and you're absolutely right. And it reminds me also of a really great video that I think you had uploaded on your YouTube channel, RAZORWIRE Reviews. I want to say maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe more, where I think you were telling us about what was it? Why you love physical media, and you're telling us about this, about finding a Blu-ray or DVD. I apologize, I forget exactly what it was. It was a
Hmm.
wrestling disc, and then that helped you to. That was an example of why you love physical media so much, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Would you mind just maybe? I'd love to hear your thoughts again. I mean, just generally, or however you want to describe it. So, what are your thoughts about physical media and how you rely on physical media and the importance of physical media to you, maybe just as it is, or compared with streaming services, whatever it is you'd like to say. But how is it that physical media is important for you and how you consume cinema right now?
Well, it's interesting because I remember when I first um, got onto Blu-ray, I was almost a bit of a HD denier at that point. I remember like saying to people, my friends, it's like, I don't think there's really that much of a difference. And actually, I was over one of my friends' houses, and he had his Xbox 360 on, and it was some wrestling game. And I was like, seriously, change it to the HDMI. I'm telling you, there's no difference. And he switched the HDMI, and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of difference there. it's undeniable. So I thought, okay, maybe I should start thinking about this Blu-ray thing. And so I did. I changed to Blu-ray. And since then, I've become like a quality snob, and I don't like it about myself. I really don't. Like, if I see a DVD, it's just like, ugh, standard definition. Like, So I'm always like the Blu-ray, the Blu-ray, the Blu-ray, and I get really picky about quality and stuff. So if we watch a film on streaming and say that the quality drops a little bit, it always bothers me. So, but one thing I like having just the stable, physical disc to be, there's never going to be a drop in quality, depending on how the thing's authored and transferred and stuff. But mainly it does go back to when I was a kid and the DVDs with the extras and just how it adds to the whole experience. And I almost get a little bit sad because I have so many Blu-rays in my collection and there's so many special features. I'll never get to all of them. There's just no way, But the completist in me wants to see everything, like I used to when I was a kid. And I'd watch all the commentaries and every extra on the disc, all the hidden Easter eggs that you could press in certain codes on the remote control. I remember the Star Wars DVDs had hidden extras. You could put in 1138 on a certain menu and it would show you like a collection of outtakes and stuff. But just having what's the term? A film in your collection that just can't be taken away. Like it's there. You have it, and you can watch it whenever you want. And there's no, I think they just launched HBO Max. It's like a lot of like Warner Brothers films are on that streaming service, and it was a lot of buzz around it. It came out, and I'm not following it, and it's not available over here or anything. But I've heard that they've started removing films from that service already. Gone with the Wind got taken down for maybe obvious reasons, and then I think some of the Harry Potter films disappeared. So it's just like, yeah, you can have these streaming services, even if the company owns these titles, and they might just not be there. So that's a big thing for me, just having the disc that I can have and watch whenever I want. But in the case of that wrestling thing I was talking about in the video, that was a Blu-ray that I bought about 10 years ago. Watched it, loved it, never looked at it again. And then suddenly 10 years later, I really wanted to watch it. There it is, And sometimes you think I have all these films, have I watched it, hundreds of these in the past 10 years? Maybe not. But someday I might, and it'll pay off at some point. And that speaks again to a lot of the films I own that I haven't seen, which is quite vast. But sometimes that's the great thing about it. Very recently, I was in work and I just suddenly felt like, I want to watch something really different. Like not a mainstream film. Came home, looked through my massive cinema collection, and just picked one out, watched it, loved it, great experience. And I was like, just validates my collection for me. Just when you're in the mood for it and you have such a selection to choose from, which can be tricky as well when you have too much to choose from and you don't know what to pick and you just get completely, confused. But yeah, it's a huge part of my film watching life is the collection and just having a wide variety of stuff, and you have complete control over it.
Incidentally, what film was it that you said that you picked at random? Do you recall?
It was, what was it called? I'm forgetting the title of it. Soul Power. It's the documentary about the concert in Zaire with which is kind of like a companion piece to When We Were Kings, which I have seen. I bought that on VHS in like 2009. There was this weird like summer of 2009. I went to all the charity shops in my local town and bought like hundreds of VHS tapes. So like in the year 2009, I watched the Godfather trilogy for the first time on VHS, which is very strange, but
that's really great. Interesting. Incidentally, how did you feel about that? How do you feel about the Godfather films?
great. Yeah. Fantastic. They, even watching them on, really ropey VHS quality, they're still great films. And I recently revisited them over the past couple of years in the past two 24-hour movie marathons we've done, which haven't been released yet. But so I watched those films with Connie. That was a big thing for Connie. She hates like gangster movies. She's avoided those films like at like every cost. But I managed to drag her kicking and screaming to watch the Godfather films, and she appreciated them. So that was good.
It's interesting. You mentioned, of course, you're watching films for your channel, the marathons. Also watching films with Connie, who's also a big part of the channel, a big part of your life, of course,
Yeah.
right? And so I'd love to ask you just a little bit about what are some of the things that have surprised you in, let's say, your film watching with Connie? Have there been any moments, have there been maybe any films that she has introduced to you that were real surprises to you, how much you really you didn't, maybe you were surprised how much you enjoyed them, or maybe vice versa? Were there any moments, any things that you had ideas about when you showed the films to her, and then she had a completely different reaction? So, or just in general, what were some of those moments in the film journey that you share with her, that really stick out to you, or that are very memorable to you throughout the years that you've been together?
Yeah, that's tricky because there's so many of them, you know, and I could go I could go on and on, but I think it's one recently was the Joker. I don't know if you've seen this film yet. It's obviously a fairly recent release, but Joker was a film I went to see with a friend, and I was really taken by it, but I felt uncomfortable by it too, and it was a really challenging film, very impactful, and she really wanted to see it, you know, and I didn't think she'd like it. I think she'd be really put off by it. So we went to the cinema to see it, and you know, the whole movie, I'm thinking, what is she thinking about this? You know, it's really intriguing to me. Usually, when we leave the cinema, we'll walk down the escalators. We don't really say anything. We let it mull over. We got outside the building, and I said, "Okay, what did you think?" And she said, "Well, I was a little bit conflicted by what he did, the Joker." And she said, "But I think that's one of the best films I've ever seen." And I was just like, "What?" I was completely surprised by it. And we filmed a review, and it was like an hour long because she had so much to say, and she just loved that film so much. We went to see it again. We were catching all these new details and stuff. So that was a case where I was really surprised by her reaction to something. But going back to the beginning, with, you know, in the early days of our relationship, I would introduce her to certain films like the Alien franchise. Again, it comes back around to that. And I'll never forget the opening scene of Alien. You know, it's where the camera's panning around the ship, very quiet, very slow. And she said, "When was this film made again?" I said, 1979. She went, "Oh God, it's so old." You know, so so she she was really averse to the age of this thing. And then I'd say Alien is probably one of her favorite films now. And many years later, we went to see it, Alien, the original, in the cinema, and that was a great experience. So, you know, that was a nice kind of turning point. Um, there's something else as well. There was one that I was thinking of with Connie. I mean, yeah, it's difficult because we watch a lot of films together, and so it just all starts to blend in at a certain point. But oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. When you were saying, is there anything she's introduced to me? That's been a big thing. Usually in the 24-hour movie marathon, there'll be something that she introduces to me. One was Crocodile Dundee, which I'd never seen before. And that was a film that her dad loved, you know, and he's no longer with us. So that was really special to me to see a film that he loved, you know, and so I felt that connection to it as well. And, but mainly I think Karate Kid, that was a huge one. I'd never seen it. It felt like a film I should have seen. You know, I have no idea why I didn't grow up with that movie, but she loved it. She wanted to show it to me, and I was just like, that was amazing. Like, it's one of my absolute favorite films now, and like the Miyagi character is just one of my favorite characters of all time, I think. And I love the whole franchise, even the weaker sequels, and the most recent series, Cobra Kai, is incredible. What an amazing show, just brilliant. So that whole franchise now is a huge part of my movie fan life, I think, and she introduced me to that film. So yeah, there's been a bit of give and take, and a lot more of me showing films to her for sure. But you know, there's just so many. There's so many.
I That's so interesting. Have you seen Crocodile Dundee 2?
Yeah, well, I think we watched that in the same marathon. I
Okay.
was like, let's just watch the sequel, and then, you know, we heard about the third one. She didn't want to watch it. Apparently, the third one's not very good.
I saw Crocodile Dundee 2 in the theater when it was
Mm.
first released. I remember this.
Brilliant film.
Yeah, I think it's very yeah. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the second one recently. Maybe I should try to
Mm.
give it watch it a go again. But
The second one's good,
yeah,
but the first one's the great. I just loved how my assumption was that he was this cool kind of badass character. You know, comes from Australia to New York, and kind of, you know, is this tough guy. But it's the complete opposite. Like, it's a front. You know, he's putting it on. You know, and he's so lovable and endearing and out of his element. And I think my favorite moment in that film was when he goes to New York and the plane takes off, and you just hear his voice inside the plane because he's never flown before, just going, "Jesus Christ!" This guy probably in his 30s, 40s, never flown before. And I remember that feeling when I first got on a plane, and you feel the, the force, and it's kind of like, whoa, So just this like supposedly tough guy just being completely thrown off. It's funny.
It's a very emotional film. It's very tender, I think,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
relationships,
surprisingly, yeah.
in the relationships that are forged between the main characters. So, and you also mentioned Karate Kid. So, I have to say that I haven't. As you may know, I'm not so good with watching recent releases, so I haven't seen Cobra Kai. I really have to try to get on that, but I haven't been able to see that. But I don't know. I know that there are a lot of issues with the film, but there are many moments where I really enjoy the third film, Karate Kid Part Three.
Yeah, there's elements of that I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. Which ones do you like about that film? By the way,
Well, it all goes back to the relationship between Daniel and Miyagi.
yeah,
I think even when you've got like a not very good. I mean, I think Ralph Macchio really doesn't like the third film. They just didn't have it didn't really seem to work for them when they were making it. But I think that you put those two actors together, they just had a chemistry. There was something special between them, and so I think even in a not so good movie, you put them together, and there's still some magic there. And the whole thing with the bonsai tree and everything. I know I like things about that film. I love the
yeah.
second one. I love the second one. I know that one's not too big for people either, but yeah.
The second, yes, I remember too. I was living in the United States at the time as a kid when that was released, and I remember also my mother taking me to the theater, and for a film, we enjoyed it very much. It was very entertaining, and I remember also my mother uh, or my parents getting me the children's version of the novelization. So it was a very short.
Yeah.
It was a short. It didn't have that many pages, but it was a novelization of Karate Kid Part Two, and I just remember reading that, and that was one of the earliest books that I remember reading, and I was really into it. I remember reading it again when I finished it. So yeah, I too have very fond memories of Karate Kid Part Two. It's a really interesting franchise, and you're absolutely right about the relationship between the two of them, Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. That's the core. That's the key, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's something I love about Cobra Kai is that isn't lost. They pay a great respect to the Miyagi character and to Pat Morita. I think there's just it's a really emotional scene in that first season, and I think Ralph Macchio said that he didn't really want to come back to that character unless that was still a big part of his life, was remembering Miyagi and everything, and so that's really well done. But that show in general, I can't believe how good it is because it takes the character of Johnny. It is Johnny, right? It's been a while since I've seen it, but it takes that character, the kid in the first film, who is this, the bad guy, and it completely. I mean, he's still a bit of a jerk, but it makes you root for him in a way, and just the way that they twist it, it's just brilliant. And then it comes back around again at the end, and then the second season was great as well. So I think it's coming to Netflix soon, which I think was a problem, that it was a YouTube show that you had to pay for YouTube Premium. So not a lot of people were really into that. It wasn't that streaming didn't really take off. So I think a lot of people just haven't seen it. But I think the first two seasons are coming to Netflix very soon. And then the third season will be on Netflix too. So I'm hoping that it'll catch on more. More people will see it, and that should be good.
oh, that's really interesting. I'll try to catch it when I can. And so thank you for very much for that. So and you mentioned also uh, the other thing I wanted to say earlier was you mentioned also about how you do a lot of movie marathons on your YouTube channel. And so this is a nice, I think, segue into your channel, your YouTube channel, which I think is it's one of my favorites, my absolute favorites. Let me just say this before just give me this opportunity to say this, is that yours is one of my absolute favorite YouTube channels. I I I was a big fan of it way back before I started my own, and I still am a big fan of your channel, very much so. I love what you do with it. I love your enthusiasm. I love how you do all these different projects. And I love, I have your numbering system in how you number all the seasons. Like I can't even do it. It's like Epic Movie Challenge Volume 2, Season 7, Part 2. I love all the categorization you have. It's amazing. That's just an example, though. That's an example of how many things, all the things you have planned in your
I
head
I
as
would
to
say
what you're
that's a
doing. It's
I'd say that's a
amazing.
I'd say that's a flaw. I think I start too
No,
many things that I don't finish. It's
no, no, it's
an
amazing.
ongoing issue.
And I love the things you have, things like Conquering My Collection, which is about
Yeah,
watching the films that you have that you haven't seen yet. That's something that
yeah.
you mentioned earlier, which I think is a great thing. You have movie marathons. Just to let everyone know, could you explain a little bit about what you mean when you say movie marathons, and what those are on your channel?
Yeah, so I do the 24-hour movie marathon every year, and so it's been, I think I've done it 9 years in a row now, and those are kind of different because they've just grown into something far bigger than they ever were supposed to be. The original idea was to do a marathon of watching movies for 24 hours. You stay up all night, you watch films, and you make a video documenting the process. Um, but from the second year, I did it over like 3 or 4 days. And so I completely warped the idea of it, which was originated by Ryan Chataway, a good friend of mine and YouTuber. So what I do is I watch 24 hours worth of movies. So I'm watching more films than you probably could watch in a 24-hour period. And then I talk about them, but I almost do like a review of them afterwards. And so, the videos spiral to like 3, 4, 5 hours long. But then I want to go the extra mile and get like images of the films to show while I'm talking about them. And then I started doing these like homages to movies, like skits, film segments and things like that, and intros and endings, and making it a little bit, cinematic. And so they've just spiraled into this massive project that I do every year. And tying it back to Connie, that's one of my favorite things to do ever, is to do the movie marathon, because me and Connie take 3 days and we just watch films. And it's almost more taxing to do it over 3 days, because it's like you spend every waking moment watching films and talking about films for 3 days, and it gets exhausting. So splitting up over 3 days is it's no less of a marathon to me. But yeah, those are big. Sometimes I'll do them where it's a little bit more low maintenance, and I'll just watch a few films and make a short video about them and kind of talk about doing a marathon. But usually it's the documenting of the process, and you know putting all the editing into it.
And these can sometimes be really big affairs, in terms of having guest appearances, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's amazing the planning that has to go into it, and of course the time investment and
Mm.
the energy involved, and making sure you're eating enough along the way. I mean, these are really involving projects, and I'm so impressed with them, especially if they're showing so much. But they are always, to me, such a great embodiment of a real love and passion for cinema. Just going the extra mile, and really, uh, showing us how much you really love cinema, the types of things that you're willing to do, and the amount of time you're willing to spend in this almost diary-like format. You're cataloging your diary entries as you're watching them. And so I always found these projects to be very fascinating. And then you
Yeah,
insert all these stories and little skits, as you say, and
yeah,
guests, which really makes it a great, almost festival, if you will. You're having your own little
yeah, a little
film
bit.
festival. Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I love getting the community involved and having other YouTubers coming and film stuff, and we'll try and do something cool and different. But yeah, it is like a life document as well, because
Yeah.
I can look back now on the marathons we did in Norway, and that's such you know a mark of our life when we lived there, because it's not just us talking about the films. It's filming around, going to the shop or something, just little things that I try and film all little, in the not the last one, there's two that I haven't released yet, because again, they're such big projects that it takes a long time to edit them. But the one before the one we did this year, a car crashed, right? while I was filming outside our flat. Like we were watching Godfather Part 2, and we just hear this crunch, and we look outside the window, and a car had run into the hair salon outside the building. So like so you get all these unexpected things happening. The year before, a family of deer walked outside our house, and I filmed that. So all these little extra things. And so that marathon will be kind of a document of our life in Surrey for that year that we were there. And then so it's kind of like you say, almost like a diary kind of thing, and it just has lots of different elements. And I don't know, some might see it as putting a lot of effort into something that is essentially just talking about movies, but I like doing it. It's special to me, and all the more special because Connie is involved with it, quite heavily.
It's like your own little Up series, the Up
A little
movies.
bit,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of, yeah, in a weird way.
I think that's wonderful, and that is an example of so many great things about your channel. I as I said, I have been, and I always will be a huge fan. And you are, I think, I'm not going to say exactly, but you are some years younger than I in terms of our age. I think I'm a little bit older than you by the space of some years, a considerable amount of years, I think. But be that as it may, I always consider you to be like not younger. I see you as a kind of big brother to me because of the types of things that you do. I first encountered your videos and I was so impressed. It was like I was talking with a friend, someone who was just willing to be so intimate with us and to share with us what you really thought about films. Sometimes you were very honest about what you liked, what you didn't like, but it was always an honest appraisal and it was your honest take. And this is also the movie marathons, I think, are another example of how much of yourself, your real self, is really invested in these videos and what you're showing to us. And I really want to thank you very much for that, for all you've done for us in the community with your channel. Because I mean, I for one can attest to the fact that what we see in on your channel, that's all you. That's real. That's not something. That's not a put on persona or anything. That's all you. And we're getting the real deal when we see you on your channel and you're really honest about what's going on in your life and the things that you're trying to do while still maintaining this balance with cinema. And not just that, really going the extra mile with the editing and with the projects and all the things that you're thinking of. So I think it's great. You are really my big brother on YouTube, and I really have I owe you so much. I really do. You've done so much for us, and I really love your channel very much, my friend.
Well, don't sell yourself too short either. I think your channel is. I mean, I've said it to you before, and you always kind of swat away my compliments. But really, your channel is really quite incredible. I think the volume of the content that you put out, especially with balancing your family life and work and everything, is it's unbelievable to me. Not just in terms of the films that you watch and the videos that you make, but just again the volume and the depth that you go into. And I think that the context and the articulation that you provide when you talk about films is far beyond anything that I could reach. But that's where we're all different and we bring different things to the table. So
Well, you are way too kind. And let me just say two things in response to that, if I may. So first of all, you are the one who really introduced me to filmmaker like Naoko Ogigami. And so that's all on you. And so that's an example of the kind of influence, a very positive influence you have on me, and I think on many other people. And also, I have to say that I still remember. I don't know if you remember this, but when I think I just started YouTube videos or something like that. I forget exactly when, but I remember when you had uploaded a video on your channel and it was something like, oh, I've just seen this video by this guy. His name is Daisuke Beppu, and he's talking about the Criterion collection. And it was wow, what a great collector. And you were so generous with your comments towards me at the time. And you didn't have to. I'm just this whatever, just talking about putting stuff on my YouTube channel with my messy shelves and oversized glasses. Who am I, right? So but you took the time to just say these wonderful things, and we didn't talk then. I wasn't. I don't think we had talked yet at that point, and so it was after that that I think we reached out to each other and we became friends, both online and off. But that was something that you, as I said, you didn't have to do, but you did, and I think I'm forever grateful. I think without something like that, I wouldn't be. I don't think I would still be doing this YouTube thing, to be perfectly honest, because it's sort of that kind of positive reinforcement that you were so generous with. That really was it really meant a lot, and I just I want to let you know that, and I want to let you know that also that I haven't forgotten. I will never forget that really wonderful show of generosity that you showed me, and at a time when you didn't even have to, and I'm so grateful for that. And that's just an example of what a nice guy you are. So
I think that a key to a YouTube channel being successful is consistency and quality, which is two things that you have, completely down. And so I think your channel would continue to grow with or without my endorsement or anything like that. But at the time, I think you didn't have many, subscribers, or at least not as many as I thought you should. I was seeing the kinds of videos that you were making in the kind of the comments you were making on films, and loved your collection, loved your style of talking about films. And so it was just something like, I think other people who follow me would enjoy this. And so just, it's the community thing. If you see a channel that doesn't have the exposure, which can take time, then it's always good to kind of just, throw a name out there and point people in the right direction. And then, we all get to enjoy more content that we're all interested in, really. So it's just, yeah.
well, you are, and you will always be, my big brother. You are my big brother. You are, you spoke about Bruce Lee. You are the big boss. You are like the guy. Maybe I shouldn't. Well, I'll take that back, because maybe that's not. The big boss in that character isn't really like a good guy. But my point is that it's
Yeah.
you are the guy. So yeah, you're the big brother to me, and you always will be. So. You're such a wonderful shining inspiration. So I hope you know that you really make a lot of people, myself included, very happy whenever you post something new. So incidentally, while I have you here on the subject, may I ask, many of your videos at the end have this ending kind of end roll, I think, where you have the YouTube thing of click on this for other videos or something like that, which is the usual thing,
Yeah.
which I think is great. But there's one thing about it which I always found fascinating, which is you have this song, Santa, like in a tree.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Well, I always wonder, what is that song? It's so catchy. It sounds like it was like a recording or something. I'm not sure, but do you mind if I ask you what that is? I've always wanted to know.
I feel like the past 9 years have been leading to this moment, just waiting for someone to ask about it. Now, a few people have asked about it over the years, but I think in my early videos, at the end, title card, I've used different sections of that song. So if you've followed my channel over the years, you've heard more of the song each time. But it's a really random thing. So I used to wrestle. I used to do backyard wrestling many years ago. And the last kind of show that we did, me and my hometown group, we did it in this area that we wrestled in for years and years and years. It was next to this abandoned council estate, which is this weird contrast of this horrible concrete monstrosity, and then in the other direction was a beautiful view of Cardiff Bay, But anyway, so there's this iconic location for us that we spent our youths growing up in, and we went there to do one more wrestling show. And at that point in time, a group of travelers were living there, all these trailers and stuff. There was actually one of the trailers had a big Bruce Lee mural painted on the side, which is kind of cool. But the travelers, they loved it. They were sitting there cheering along for the matches and stuff. And then one of the guys came down with his guitar and just started playing songs just on the spot, just making enough about people who were there and stuff. And so that was one of the songs that he did. So it was about one guy had thrown a can of beer into a bush or something, and so he was kind of like playfully chastising him for not recycling his beer can, and so that was the song. And I don't know, when I started my channel, it was something that tickled me and I thought was funny, so I just used a little bit and thought this will probably make people think, what the hell is that? So it did its job.
Wow, mystery solved. I've been wondering this for the
Yeah.
longest time. This is so cool, but what is this? I don't know what it is, but one of these days, maybe I'll have the opportunity to ask Luke, and voila, you've given me this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you. So, incidentally, you bring up your wrestling history, which is, I think, another fascinating thing, one of many fascinating things about you, my friend. Uh, is that, did you do that for a long time? And if so, what could you tell us a little bit about that? How was that? And how do you feel about wrestling now that you're in a different stage in your life?
Well, that's a very long story, so I'll try and give you the cliff notes as quickly as I can. I did it for a long time, so messing around with friends was something I always did. Just play wrestling. But I joined like the community, the UK community, maybe when I was 15, something like that. And from there, it's traveling all around the UK and wrestling different people. And the term backyard wrestling, you think of people just hitting each other with weapons and being really unsafe and stuff. But it got to the point. I mean, a lot of the people who I wrestled with are now in the WWE. There was a lot of talent there, and a lot of great wrestlers. And it was one of the best experiences I ever could have had. I paid for it physically. My body went through a lot, but I have some incredible memories and some great friends. And what was so great about that community was just, it's similar to the YouTube movie community in a way, is that you find yourself becoming friends with people who you never would have before, based on a mutual love of something. And the same was with wrestling, just people from all different walks of life, and you just bond over this one love. And yeah, so I did that for many, many years until I was in my early 20s when I stopped doing it then. Did a couple of matches after that, but yeah, looking back on it now, it's just grateful that I had the experience that I did, because it's just something not a lot of people can say that they've done. It's yeah, so many stories, so many memories, and it was just a wonderful. I was going to say childhood, but it was more of a youthhood. It's from from 15 or so to about 21. That was like my life. It took over everything, to a flaw, I think, because I was in film school at the time, and I kind of really didn't pay attention to it because my head was all about wrestling. So I could have learned more, I think, if I wasn't so absorbed with the world of wrestling. But yeah, it's a positive thing looking back on it now.
I think also that was something that I think you and I also bonded over, when we were first getting to know each other. Because I mean, I haven't wrestled myself, but I was a big fan of professional wrestling for when I was a kid growing up. And
Yeah.
I think there was one moment where I had I want to say there was on my channel I was doing a randomly scheduled live stream, I think. And for some reason, I think the topic of professional wrestling came up. And I think you were there. You were in the live chat, and you took the time to stop by. I was so grateful. And I think maybe you or someone else was saying, "Oh, we were talking about wrestling," and I was talking about how I was into. I was This is the period of the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk
Mm.
Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter and Bret the Hitman Hart, and was with was it Marty Jannetty?
Hmm.
And that it was that period that I was into. And I think you or someone was encouraging me to do on the live stream there, like a Macho Man Randy Savage impersonation. So I was, so that was one of the, I don't know if it was a highlight or a low light, I'm not sure, but that
I
was
certainly haven't forgotten it. So.
so, I don't know. I haven't. That was. It was. I hadn't thought of that moment for the longest time. I remember seeing, watching on the TV, because they had TV shows. It was called the WW. It's now the WWE, right? But they had
Mm.
shows on, and you could see all these things on network TV. And then I hadn't seen that in the longest time. It just suddenly came back. The memories came back of professional wrestling on TV. It was really, really. Incidentally, what are some of the are there any good wrestling movies, or are there any good moments in wrestling, or are there any, maybe not necessarily wrestling moments or movies, but are there any films that you think best embody or personify wrestling, or maybe feature a wrestler in a really in a great way that you think is the perfect embodiment or perfect mixture of cinema and wrestling? Is there anything that you can point to in cinema now, whether it be a documentary or a feature film or anything like that?
There's a few things. I mean, the WWE, they produce their own documentaries on wrestlers, and they're really fantastic. There was a recent documentary series about The Undertaker called The Last Ride, a 5-part series. It's one of the best things I've seen. It is an incredible behind the scenes look. But more in terms of cinema per se, The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, I think, is a great film, and it really captures a lot of the more I don't want to say the uglier side of wrestling, but the more kind of realistic side of what a lot of independent wrestlers go through, where it isn't all glitz and glamour, and you have this character who is way past his prime and is still just trawling the indie circuit and beating his body up. And it's a brilliant film, actually. I think that's you could look at it and say it shows wrestling negatively, but I think that there's a lot to be said for it at the same time. And I recently watched a documentary on Amazon Prime called Cassandro Exotico, I think, which is about this. I think he's not sure if he's Mexican, but it's the Mexican lucha libre style, and he's a wrestler who has completely destroyed his body over the past 20 years. So that was a really good documentary. So that there's things, but I think it can be exploited so much more. Maybe exploit isn't the right word, but it can be harnessed so much more. Beyond the Mat is a big one. Have you seen Beyond the Mat documentary? Oh, wow. That's a big one, actually, from the 90s. I mean, that follows Mick Foley, Terry Funk. It has a really interesting kaleidoscope of subjects. But yeah, I think that the world of wrestling could be explored even further. And that's what I loved about it, was the storytelling. It wasn't, I mean, the athletic side of it is great, but it's the stories that it tells. I can watch someone do 100 flips and it's entertaining and so on. But when it's about these two guys who've got this issue with each other and there's this backstory, this history, that's what intrigues me. That's what I try to build myself towards in my wrestling. And I ended up making a little film about, my, the peak of me as a wrestler in terms of telling a story. So I've made a little, little piece about that. And even for my, if you want to call it, filmmaking journey, when I was a kid, I started making films. That's a whole other story. When I started wrestling, I started filming the wrestling matches. And so I've edited hundreds of videos of backyard wrestling using music video style, taking music and matching certain things to the beat and stuff. And so that, it's all part of the editing journey for me. And then I transitioned into YouTube. And so, yeah, wrestling was still, there was still the germ of my love of movies in terms of the storytelling, and then filming things, making videos. And so it's all part of the process.
That's really fascinating, and I should mention before we go on about you mentioned the documentary about the Undertaker. I haven't seen that documentary, but I still remember when I was a kid and I saw the debut of the Undertaker. I forget, was it Survivor Series? I think one of those
Yeah.
events, and it was that was before Paul Bearer. It was Brother Love who had introduced the Undertaker before Brother Love turned the reins. Team member, I want to say it was Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase and his team for the Survivor Series. It was 4 versus 4, and Ted DiBiase had a team, but with the mystery member, and it wouldn't be revealed until the event. And so it was a build up with who is this mystery member, and then Survivor Series came, and I think it was pay-per-view at the time, where I was living in the States at the time. I think that's the case, but I still remember, or maybe I was in the UK. It's all a blur now, but it was. I remember him coming out, and the announcer. I forget the announcer. Was it Bobby the Brain Heenan, or Roddy Piper. I forget exactly, but I just remember them saying it was, look at the size of him. Look at the size. He's a huge,
That,
I just, that was the buildup. And it was,
that was Roddy Piper. Yeah.
it was Roddy Piper. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Look at the size of it. That, look at him. It's amazing. And then he went into the ring and it was just, we hadn't seen this. You hadn't seen what was it? What was his finishing move called? The tombstone? Is
Yep.
that what is the reverse pile driver? And like I was a kid. Well, I didn't even know what a pile driver or what is a reverse pile driver. And I see this thing happen. It's just, my goodness, the world changed from that moment on. It was amazing. And you're so right too about how it's a story and about how it's you have to create the story, otherwise no one's going to buy it, no one's going to be interested in it. And it's all about the buildup, and people who did it well did it really well,
Hmm.
and those stories just carry on for years after they were first told.
I mean, essentially, a wrestling match is like, a 20-minute fight scene done in one take with no redos. Like, you got one shot at it, in some ways. But that Undertaker series, I mean, it completely shatters the mystique of the Undertaker, which is really brilliant because it follows him over the past 3 or 4 years as his career is winding down and he's thinking about retiring. And you just see this man who is built up as this powerful, like, legendary figure. And you just see him vulnerable and like, self-conscious and not, unsure about things, with so much love and passion for it. Where, he's going to retire. It's the last match he's ever going to have. And he has the match and he's like, okay, I'm done. And then he watches it back and he's like, it wasn't good enough. Like, I need to give the people more than that. And his wife is like, you've been through so much, like, can't we just call it a day? But he has that fire within him to just keep going and to train and to get better. And he's in his 50s and he's dragging himself through there. He can barely walk. He has his hip replaced during the documentary. And yeah, it's a fascinating look at someone who has so much love for something and how much dedication they have to telling stories, basically, because that's what his character was all about, was telling stories. So yeah, it's huge.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. I still remember to this day also that move, that move where he took the guy's arm and he
Yeah.
went up to the top and then he walked on the rope. He
Hmm.
would walk and balance on the rope and then jump off the rope and just hit him with his arm. And who does that? Who gets on the rope and then jumps off? It was amazing. And watching it as a kid, you never forget things like that. I certainly haven't. So amazing stuff, absolutely amazing stuff. But you also mentioned there that you were in film school. Now
Mm.
I didn't know this. I knew that you were you made your own shorts and you make skits that we see on YouTube, but I didn't know that you went to film school. Could you tell us a little bit about that? This is really interesting to me.
So when I was like 11, I got my first camera and started making films, and so obviously my family was saying you should, try and pursue this. And I lost a year of my life basically because I finished high school at 16 and we had a career advisor. Okay, what do you want to do? I told her I want to do filmmaking in some way, shape, or form. So she recommended to me a course to go in college. So I took that advice from the career advisor, went to the college, and it was an art course. I wasn't interested in doing art. And so I found myself doing, having to do like paintings and things. And this isn't filmmaking. And so after a couple of months, I left and I had a year to do nothing basically because this career advisor had just completely steered me down the wrong path. So that sucked. And so then I had to find it for myself. And there was a TV and film production course in a different college. And so I signed up for that and did that for 3 years. And I did learn a lot. A lot of it is practical stuff. We went and filmed some things, and a lot of it is the boring paperwork side of filmmaking, which I wasn't as interested in, obviously. The editing on computers and things like that, and then like TV production. There's like a mini studio in the college. That was kind of fun, using the cameras and things and setting up all sorts of different things. But yeah, I do think I completely wasted those times though, because in the last 2 years of that course, I was full into the wrestling and I'm traveling around the country like every month to go do wrestling. And I'm thinking about my next match. And so it went by the wayside really. So I think I could have done both. I didn't have the dedication, I think. So I think I could have learned more from that course in general. And obviously, it hasn't really led anywhere, unfortunately. But you know, I still do my own thing, and yeah, it is what it is.
Do you think that you have been able, say, for example, to apply some of those skills that you learned from your film school or film studies experience? Do you think you've been able to apply those to what you do now or what you have done on YouTube, or do you not see as much of a connect? Is there a connect there between your film school experience and now, or
Um, I would say honestly not. I think that the problem for me in film school was that I'm quite a shy person, which has gotten lesser as I've gotten older, I think, and I've grown to care less about what other people think of me, and so it's you're not constantly thinking, oh, I shouldn't say this, or you know, very shy when I was younger, and so I wouldn't put myself out there. So with college, it was like I'd get lumped with doing the sound, you know, just standing there with the microphone, the boom mic, you know, which wasn't what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be like, you know, getting in there and directing something, but I didn't have the personality to push myself forward for that. But there's certain things about analyzing film I definitely took, you know, I'd never considered before, because we would have classes where we just watched films and talked about them and just discussed them and things like that. But yeah, with the practical side of things, it's honestly been more just my own do-it-yourself attitude, I think. You know, even when I was a kid, I'd you know edit all these things by taking two VCR players and putting them on top of each other and putting the wires through and like sitting there for hours on end, like pausing and recording and getting the different edits and trying to find music. I'd sometimes edit a clip from a film that I was making and then film it off the TV with my camera and press play on a tape recorder to get music to go over it. You know, just all sorts of really, you know, awful techniques, but like, you know, the building blocks of piecing things together with audio and video. And that once you know, the more accessible non-linear editing software became available on computers and I got my first laptop, I was just off to the races then, just always editing things, making videos, whether it was wrestling stuff or just short films, things like that. So and then YouTube comes along and it just seems kind of tailor-made for, you know, putting stuff together like that.
I mean, it's amazing stuff. Really amazing. I mean, you do a lot of homages
Right,
to
yeah.
films as well. I'm so impressed by that. You did a lot. I remember things that came that were, I thought, examples of some of the great creative stuff that you did. So many great examples, of course, but like you did a lot of Twin Peaks homages, David Lynch
Sure.
stuff, and
Yeah.
um, it just shows a kind of everlasting creativity on your part that seems to have very many. It's multifaceted, but it's always rooted in a kind of sense of filmmaking and wanting to make films, as well as wanting to appreciate and enjoy films made by others, and it all comes together in one place, which is your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy doing that stuff. Sometimes I wish that maybe I would take some of that creative energy into something original and try and make a proper short film. But I don't know. It's just easy sometimes just to, you know, make something that's more of a homage to something and will be a fun centerpiece for a video I'm making or something like that. So I enjoy that stuff. It can give a video an extra kick. And even if other people don't appreciate it, I feel personally satisfied if I put the extra effort into something. Like the Only Yesterday discussion that we did a few months ago. I mean, that's something that I'm sure anyone who watches that video, they'll probably just listen to us talking about it. But I spent so much time on the video just because for me, when me and you talk about a film, it's kind of like a special thing for me. So I want to put the extra effort in. And so we recorded both our audio separately. And I went through the whole 2 hours and kind of like dropped my audio out when you were talking and vice versa, so that there was no like audio interference, and then cutting out the gaps where we didn't say anything for a couple of seconds, and then ripping the Blu-ray of the movie and getting like hundreds of images to put in throughout, you know. So I like putting that extra detail in. It feels like when I hit render on a video that I put a lot of time and effort into, it's like super satisfying to me. Just be like, that's like another nice little thing done. I don't know. I just like making things. You know, it's a very satisfying thing to me. So
Oh, I think that's wonderful. And yeah, that is such a great example too. I remember that, and I remember after we had recorded that session about Only Yesterday, and I remember feeling that my part was very easy. I all I had to do was make time to talk with you, which was a lot of fun, of course. Don't get me wrong, but my point is that my my contribution, I think, was very, very small compared to relatively to your overall contribution, because as you say, it wasn't just you talking with me and me talking with you, but it was you using the raw footage and the sound and really putting it together, putting an opening and a close, and the music and the thumbnail and all that. Was all you. That was all you. And so I think that's I know how much work you've put in. I don't know all the specifics, of course, because you know that much more than I. But I know how much work you put into this, and I really I think and I hope many people out as well know that, because you really put in so much work,
Well,
especially
my
when you're busy and
yeah.
with other things. You still and I like also how I don't know if I, I don't know if perfectionist is the right word, but maybe you are really careful. You take
Yeah, I
care
suppose.
with what it is you want, and that explains why you say you're satisfied when you press render, because
Yeah.
you are you really put the time and effort into these things, which I admire greatly.
I should say though, like I'm not saying that to
Yeah,
to what's the word, to fish for credit. I'm
yeah,
what my point is that I don't really care about that. It's just for me personally, it's a personal satisfaction. So it's not like I put so much effort into, I hope people see all the effort that goes into it. No, I like the for me it just feels more I can't think of the word, more of an accomplishment, I think. So I don't know. And again, they're just YouTube videos, but I enjoy making them a little bit more special if I can. And I don't always do it. There's many videos where it's a simple, just a simple to camera, and it's you just edit it very quickly, and that's fine. But I like, I don't like to go too long without having something where I'm really getting down into the nitty gritty of putting these extra flourishes in. That's the stuff that I enjoy doing, and it just gives me satisfaction on a personal level.
and I you are so wonderful in your modesty. It's you're just what a you're just I really I mean I just want to say again how much how much I admire all the work you put in, and I wish I could reach that level. I know I can't, but I wish I could. And so, and the fact that you're just saying, you're doing it because you want to do it. That's so great, my friend. Really, I just want to just and again, I don't want to, I know what you mean when you're explaining it, of course, but at the same time, I still want to let you know how much I appreciate all the work that you do, because I do know the work that you put into these things, and I really appreciate it very much, very much. And so it's again so many wonderful examples on your channel of the projects that you're doing, and the like. And so we look forward to all the videos that you have planned and upcoming going forward. I suppose one final area that I wanted to ask you about before we start to wrap this up, which is, of course, there are so many things that you talk about on your channel, which is cinema focused, and we, of course, have a lot in common in terms of the types of things that you and I like to talk about, and the things we like to talk about with others. I think one of the things I'm always curious about is what are some of your recent film recommendations, and maybe not recent is the wrong word. What are some of your favorite film recommendations that you could make to us? They could be recent films or classic films, or films that you have in your mind right now. What are some films that you could recommend to us? Because again, another thing that I don't know if people, excuse me, I don't know if people realize, which is you and I talk a lot offline, and you always give me all these recommendations. Oh, you've got to watch this film. You've got to watch that film. I think it was you in particular who was so excited about the film Portrait of a Lady on Fire. you remember we had those conversations, and you were so enthusiastic. This was some months back, so this was before the Criterion release,
Yeah.
and so I hadn't been able to see it yet. But you were so enthusiastic at the time, and this really heightened my anticipation for the film when it arrived on Criterion eventually. And when I saw it, I too was just overwhelmed by its beauty and power. And you were absolutely right. So there was another great recommendation that you gave to me. And so I want to ask you, are there any film recommendations that you have now? Any films that you recently purchased on Blu-ray that you thought, oh, this is a really good one. I really want to let people know about this, or anything like that that you want to let us know about?
I can't think of anything that's more out of the box in terms of, a recommendation to people. Like you say, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I mean, that's the one that, currently is still in my mind a lot. And the story that I told you was that I watched the first hour of that film, and then I just paused it and just almost didn't want to continue because it was so great. I just thought, wow, what if the second half doesn't live up to the first? It's going to be heartbreaking because this is already one of the best films I've ever seen. So I just sat there for like an hour, just like, just thinking about it. And then I watched it and it was great, and, even better than the first hour. But yeah, that was actually, that ties into an earlier question with Connie. So I wanted to show her that film like desperately, but I was also kind of terrified that A, it wouldn't live up to my first viewing of it, and that B, she wouldn't find it as great as I thought. And then she admitted to me before we watched it, she's like, I'm kind of nervous to watch this now. And I'm like, it's fine. You don't need to feel any pressure about enjoying this film, but she thought it was great, so that was nice. But that is it's funny when they announced the Criterion for Portrait of a Lady on Fire. All I thought about was you, because I thought, wow, now that means he has to watch it. If there's any way to get you to watch a movie, release it in the Criterion Collection. It's 100%. But so I was very excited to hear your thoughts on that, and I was very pleased that you enjoyed it.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought it was just, I'm still in a kind of daze or hypnotized by its power. It's seemingly, it seems quite simple in its construction, but
Yeah.
I mean that in a positive way. But the more I think about it, the more I realize how utterly beautifully structured it is. But it's not. It doesn't show it. It all it presents also an emotional tapestry that is of a kind of a cinematic poetic power that is undeniable and just lasts even now, and it lingers. Yeah, everything about it's just, I think about it and something else comes along, and I think about it again and something else comes along. It just leads to different corridors of thought and emotion.
Yeah.
Absolutely overwhelming. You were absolutely right about that, my friend, as you are with many things.
Yeah, it made me cry like 3 times. Like the whole, like, the last 20 minutes of the film was just such a emotional powerhouse. Yeah, just I think it was Vanessa, right, who you spoke to in a previous conversation, who talked about how it felt like a classic film. And when I heard that, I absolutely agreed with that. It has a timeless quality to it, I think, that just helps to service the story even more. But yeah, just an incredible film.
Yeah.
I think I have the Blu-ray here somewhere. Yeah, 2 seconds. Let me just grab it off camera.
Sure.
Because the Barnes and Noble sale has just been, I think it just finished, right? Or it's about to finish. So I just received my package of like 11 titles, and you'd think that I'd get the Criterion, and I will at some point. But I've got the UK release, which is really great. It has some really good special features on here. It has I'm not sure they call it. They just call it a paintings featurette. So it's literally like an hour long of the paintings that were done in the movie by the painter who did them for the film. And it's just like, not even time lapse. It's just like, you just see her painting, just 10-minute sections. And it's just like the sound of the brush on the, I don't know, it was really weird that it's just, I sat and watched it for an hour after watching the film. So it was like this kind of nice kind of post movie experience, just watching the paintings slowly getting created. It was very, very cool. So it's a great Blu-ray for anyone who's in the UK. If they, can't get the Criterion, I think that it's a great alternative and has quite a few good special features.
Yeah, and a number of them that aren't on the Criterion.
Yeah, the audio
Yeah,
commentary is not on the
yeah,
Criterion, so
yeah.
that's
That's yeah. So that makes that version, I think, very valuable and very beneficial for anyone who really is into that film. As great as the Criterion releases, and I think it's great, but you're absolutely right
yeah.
to bring up those other features that don't appear on the Criterion release. You know.
Yeah, I'll absolutely get the Criterion for sure because it's one of my favorite films now, I think. So, another film I recently revisited was Interstellar, which, you know, again, it's a fairly popular movie, but it's one of my favorites. And seeing that film again was great. I've been watching the special features again, and it's staggering how much practical effects were used in that film, and not even practical effects, just the practical production. Have you seen the film?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the farm where, you know, a lot of the film takes place, that's like a complete, you know, fabrication. Like they built that house from scratch, the whole thing. The, you know, the cornfields they planted in like an area of Canada where the farmers were telling them it's not going to grow, you know, this is not going to happen, but they did it, you know. And then the huge ships that they build and everything. So it's one of those films that is a recent, you know, science fiction, very visual film that has all these, you know, big elements of visual splendor. A lot of it is real, which you don't really see these days. And so, I mean, that's just looking at it from a visual perspective, but it has such an emotional, you know, again, the ending still gets me. I think it's such a, I think it's an underrated film. I think it's Nolan's best film. I think it's like his most personal film. I saw an interview recently where he was asked that question, do you think this is your most personal film? And he said, I think all my films are personal in some way. But I think that there's a real thread there. Great film. And then one last one I could mention that I saw recently was One Cut of the Dead. Have you seen this one? Oh, what a film. What a film. I I heard from a friend, stick with it for the first half an hour. Just stick with it. And so I had that in mind. And I'm not going to say anything about it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but man, it's like a tale of three movies, low budget, and the way that that film constantly transforms itself is just so much fun. I haven't had more fun watching a film in quite a long time. So One Cut of the Dead, highly recommended. You know, if you just want a super enjoyable 90-minute movie, just check it out. I urge you.
Yeah, I agree with you on one kind of that. I haven't spoken about that film at all, but I actually I have been thinking about doing something with it one day. Maybe you and I can talk about it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Maybe on a another one of our film discussions if we can find the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in detail. Because I feel I also feel very enthusiastic about that work, very much so.
Mhm.
Those are great, absolutely great. Um, and so, with that, my friend, I think you have given us so much wonderful stories and insights and anecdotes and little glimpses, not little, great glimpses, really, into who you are and what kind of film lover you are and how your life journey and your cinema journey have carried you through everything and to bring you where you are now, which is, as I say, our big brother, you know, the one that we look up to, the one that I look up to, and I admire everything that you do, and I look forward to all the great videos that you have planned for us going forward. Everything, absolutely, from the
That's,
great projects to those little asides, like that video about the wrestling Blu-ray that
mm,
turns into this great thing. And so that's my everything that you do is always golden for me and for everyone. And so I look forward to that next video with great anticipation, as always.
yeah.
Incidentally,
It's just
are there any things that you have lined up? You don't have to say anything you don't want to, for you don't want to spoil it, but are there any upcoming videos that you can tell us about? I think you already uploaded something about Criterion titles um, and other acquisitions. Are there any other videos that we can expect to see very soon?
Yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of Blu-ray update videos recently. So the Criterion Barnes and Noble sale stuff is up. There's a couple more of those Blu-ray centric videos coming up. You know, nothing too. I mean, I have the John Carpenter video. That's the big thing I'm trying to get finished. So that'll be pretty big when I do finish it. Well, at least in terms of size, it'll be pretty big. But yeah, that's pretty much done. So I just need to finish off a few bits and pieces. So I'm going to try and focus on that for now. I'm also trying to work on another Twin Peaks video, which is like a whole ongoing thing. It was, I think, 3 years ago I watched everything for the first time, and I filmed like reactions throughout the whole like journey through the box set. And so I'm still editing those videos. But again, it's one of the things where I love Twin Peaks so much now that I want to, rip all the Blu-rays and get clips and little pictures to use. And so, I get dragged down by my own attention to detail sometimes. But yeah, so I want to try and get one of those done. Otherwise, it's just the usual thing. We filmed a few 1001 Movies videos where we talk about films in the book, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. So those are like filmed and in the can. I just need to edit them, So yeah, there's a few things coming up. It's just, it's usual fare for me. There's usually, every week there's a couple of videos. So nothing too, nothing too dramatic on the horizon, just the usual stuff.
Oh, when you say it's the usual stuff for you, as I say, it's stuff that I and many other people are looking forward to, as always, my friend. So, as you are you are such a gentleman, and you are so wonderful in your talk with us today, and I just want to thank you so much for your time, and I hope it's the first of many. And so, if it's okay with you, would you mind? Would you like to come back again, and we can continue this conversation? Because there
Yeah,
are many other
definitely. Yeah.
questions that I'd love to ask you, and to hear your thoughts on. So, is that okay if we can invite you back again very soon? I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that this is only scratching the surface, really. I mean, I was thinking about things, trying to like jog my memory before we did the conversation, and there's just like a whole slew of stories about going to the cinema, growing up, and then and beyond to like cinema stories. There's a lot of that. I don't know how interesting that is to people, but yeah, there's so much more to talk about. So anytime, absolutely.
Oh, it would be my pleasure. Absolutely. Let's do it again. So this is not the final thing, but this is just the first of hopefully many instances where we can listen to your great insights and wonderful stories, and just sharing with us why it is you love cinema. So Luke at Razor Wire Reviews. The channel is called Razor Wire Reviews. All the information will be in the description box below. You can check it out, check out all the videos, like all the videos, subscribe to the channel, the notification bell, and it's all worth it, my friends, because it's one of the best. And Luke is one of the best. He is the real deal, my friends. He's the real deal. So you check it out and enjoy it, and we will enjoy your next videos, and we will look forward to seeing you here again. But in the meantime, my friend, thank you so much for your time. And I hope you're well. Continue to stay safe and take good care of yourself, and be well. And if I could end with this, let me end with two things. Well, not two things. Let me just say this. Don't drink all the Coke. All right, my friend. Thank you very much, and
Cheers.
cheers. Thank you. And we are, whoops, is it still recording?